term, then you're saying it will for sure be affordable for anyone who needs it.
I'm saying we would want to ensure that we work to make it affordable, but we can't control that price because we need the private sector to invest. The priority is to get vaccines and therapeutics. Price controls won't get us there.
Mr. Secretary.
Our government.
You are recording.
It is Friday, February 28th, 2020. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. Yes, that was the director of the Health and Human Services Azar speaking before Congress about how the fact that the rich will definitely be able to get the coronavirus vaccine. Everyone else, well, it depends on private sector investment, how much profit they need to take. Yes, once again, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, coming to you again with Sean Kitchen, our Capital Muckraker-in-Chief. And we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. That's right. Today's show, whoa, it's going to be a big week ahead. We might even get some special programming in on this one, folks. Tomorrow is the South Carolina Democratic primary, and 3 days later, it's Super Tuesday. This week things really heated up with a disastrous debate and polling that's all over the map. Oh, yeah, and who was that booing in the audience in South Carolina debate, by the way? Cha-ching! Going into South Carolina, Biden is either 20 points or 16 points or 9 points or 4 points ahead. So either it's going to be a runaway or it's within the margin of error. We don't know. And actually, I think that's actually a good thing, right? Because now we can just, pick your poll, make your case, and then, Twitter will be happy. Right? That's where it's going. And this week, Chris Matthews tried to redeem himself after equating Bernie Sanders' victory in Nevada with the Nazi takeover of France. How does he do that, you ask? Well, he interviews Elizabeth Warren to grill her about why anybody should believe a woman making harassment allegation against a billionaire Bloomsberg. Yeah. It should not be surprising that there are now calls that he be fired from his job. Oh, and we'll tell you what you can do with your convention rules, DNC. And we'll also give you a little hint about how many people give a shit about those convention rules. Adam Green goes on TV to tell the world that Elizabeth Warren's path to the nomination does not rely on winning a state. Again, I'll have less to say. Bernie Sanders plans a rally with Silicon tech workers at San Jose City Hall this Sunday. That is ahead of Super Tuesday's election, and there is a possibility, right, that Sanders may walk away with all or nearly all of the delegates from California. The only one who's now qualifying, in addition to Sanders, according to the latest polling, is Elizabeth Warren. That would just be something else. And whoa, what's happening in Texas? Oh, did we mention Massachusetts? Home state advantage, anybody? In today's PA Focus, Bernie Sanders takes the lead in the latest Pennsylvania primary polling. Senator Sanders is also leading the key battleground states of Wisconsin and Michigan. And this past Wednesday, Kutztown University faculty and students held the first town hall for the Healthy Campus Bill of Rights. It was powerful. And the axe is getting closer to drop as not enough faculty want to take the sick leave payout for early retirement. Poor Greenstein. He just wants to be a good chancellor. And today's last call, return of 7 of 9 on Star Trek's Picard, and she's not playing. I just had to say that because I wanted to. And what's going on with that show Rising with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty? We'll talk a little about that in today's last call and a little kind of cultural commentary on what's going on there. And this Sunday is Free Will's Spirit of Mardi Gras Barrel Age Celebration. And they will be breaking out, in addition to a whole bunch of barrel age stuff, but they will be breaking out 2015 vintage Ralphius bottles. And that is from John's Secret Stash. And tomorrow we get another release, and this is another bottle release of Kangaroo Dreams Dry Hop Saison aged in wine barrels. Want to remind everybody, tune in to The Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And make sure you listen to Rick's daily podcast, right? Because he's live. You can tune into Twitter every night at 9 o'clock, and he's broadcasting live. Or get his podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcast. Just look for The Rick Smith Show. And if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. You can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We're expanding our network as we prepare for the fight of our lives, the fight for the future in 2020. We're all in for the fight, and now we need you. We're not asking you to break the bank. We're asking you to become a member for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep media in the movement and movement in the media. Become a member as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Because at the end of this year, after the election in 2020, we all want to be able to say,
wow, she gutted him like a fish.
That's right, everybody. Sean, man, welcome to the beginning of Chaos Week and hopefully a turn in the history of American politics.
Yep. So we are recording?
We are recording.
Okay, I'm just making this sure.
Sean is asking that because we've been recording through Zoom. Once that Google ended its Hangouts, which we used to record through, we're recording through Zoom, and something about Zoom, I don't know if it was an update or whatever it is not doing so well with something else on my computer, and it's crashed my computer twice today. So we're having to kind of we're relying on Zoom's web broadcaster today, and so I can only have one recorder. I do not have a backup. So if anything sounds weird, it's because we're going with the single record today. So
nice.
Yeah. We are recording. Thank you for asking before we got too far.
Yes, I was just making sure. So I guess where should we start?
Well, let's do like the ahead of South Carolina first, and then we can talk a little bit about possibilities of Super Tuesday. And I also want to talk a little about as kind of like as part of this discussion. I mean, you and I were having a little bit a talk ahead of time, and you were kind of recounting some conversations with some folks about trying to understand kind of like say your support and other folks' support for Bernie Sanders. And I thought that's kind of a cool discussion. So I thought maybe we could talk a little about that too. But let's start with South Carolina.
Sounds good. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm just tweeting something out right now. So like, I just got tagged in a tweet about coronavirus, about this dad going on Fox News with his daughter, and he has a cough the whole entire time. He went through quarantine. They said he's fine, but he was coughing straight through the interview and then sharing a water bottle with his daughter back and forth.
Oh, my God.
Just like... and it's the Harrisburg background drop and the Capitol backdrop, like, pretty much makes me like want to go to my get all my errands done today and self-quarantine for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I should. You know what? We should start right here. Why don't we just start right here, actually? Because I mean, I put that in the intro about we had the director Azar, Alex Azar, who's the director of the Health and Human Services, who went before Congress and was answering questions about the vaccine and preparedness. And of course, the Trump administration has had 75 different messages on what it is of probably the best is that
at least like we gave the coronavirus czar is handed to someone who caused an HIV epidemic in his own home state.
Well, look, he's got a direct line to God.
So I mean, at least we got some there's experience and confidence there.
No, come on. Mike Pence has got a direct line to God, and because as Trump said, right, through maybe some kind of miracle, it'll just go away. Like when spring comes, literally, like that's his answer. And like, yeah,
while like China, I mean, like also, I mean, like, so I actually have a couple of things I was thinking about this, right? One, this is serious. Like, obviously, everyone should take care of it and not make a joke out of this. Be diligent and stuff like that. But I actually think that this is like something like this can actually undermine our whole entire economic system.
Yeah.
Simply because, one, we don't have health care for all in this country.
Yep.
We've outsourced all of our jobs. through globalization and trade pacts, and all of those jobs are now in China, and like China's manufacturing sector has basically shut down. So like we're going to start seeing a delayed ripple effect with this. And Sam Sear was talking about this yesterday, but like this is what life is going to be like with these disruptions.
Right.
With climate change coming.
Yep.
And we have two roads to go down. Either we build a socialist communal society, or we allow our free market capitalism to run rampant, unchecked as it has been, and we extract as many resources as possible, and we go down into a fascist rabbit hole. Like, I mean, like this is like what we're going towards, like with climate change, right? I mean, like you can pin the whole entire mess that's going to happen with climate change onto capitalism.
Yes.
Because capitalism requires expansion and the constant growth. And the constant growth means you have to keep on consuming more resources and expending more resources, which means we're going to be burning more and more and more until we are out of resources, or until the planet's fried. Either or. Yep. So but like
it's
for something like this,
poison.
Yeah, and like something like this is disrupting all the manufacturing in China. We're going to feel this, echo probably within a month or two of that. And like, what's going to happen when we start having shortages, and where we are a net importer of food, of manufactured items? We don't produce our own food. We don't produce, we are completely reliant on other countries. And right now, there's other countries going through like a pandemic.
Yep.
This is what, yeah, obviously I have my issues, but like I feel like with our current economic system, it just shows you that it's unsustainable, and what's going to happen when we have wealth and power concentrated to a select few people.
Yeah, look, this is also, that clip that I put in from the director of Health and Human Services. One of the reasons why I put that in is because you've hit on several of like those intersections, right? It's like, and it's not just capitalism, but even specifically, right, the past 40-year project of the right wing, right, and these kind of like dark money billionaire
decaying of
brothers.
institutions.
Exactly.
I mean, so like hollowing out of government institutions, right? We've hollowed out the CDC. We've hollowed out Health and Human Services. We've hollowed out any research we've spent, any research and development. We've all put that into the hands of either drug manufacturers or tech companies to do their own research, instead of us funding these things and going through with it. And yeah, I mean, like this is just an intersection of like what this is like. We're facing an actual crisis at a point when like we've hollowed out our institutions to the point where this might collapse our system, right? Collapse these institutions,
exactly,
and not being able to contain a pandemic. And we don't have the right people in place right now. And yet, this is mainly not Trump's fault, but the response by Trump is atrocious. This is exactly a 40-year symptom of like Republican, right-wing, laissez-faire, Ayn Rand politics.
Right. But look, okay, so here's the thing. This is where we see the intersection of exactly what you said. Yes, this is absolutely a part of that 40 years. And we see this coming to a head under the Trump administration. And let me give you an example of this. This is our not always friend Matthew Iglesias, right? Kind of writing in Vox, right? Talks about what some of the specific things under Trump, which basically Trump has brought to fruition this 40-year agenda of the radical right. And so he talks about what happened in 2005 when we saw the outbreak of the H1N5 bird flu, right? And that was the scare about a pandemic at that point. And under the George W. Bush administration, right, in 2005, what he did and his administration did is they established this kind of, it was a program to basically track pandemic responses, but more than that, it was to say we need to take a proactive stance for potential future pandemics. So what are we going to do is that we're going to go out and we're going to find any time that a new virus pops up, or something, or we're going to be taking samples and start working proactively to think about, like, sequencing those viruses and developing vaccines for those viruses in the potential, if they have a potential becoming pandemic, right? And that was successful, right? They got ahead of a whole bunch of different diseases, right? Trump administration cut that program. It's gone. Right, so now there's this claim that he's been making online, and Pence has been saying too that Trump is investing all this money. He's investing all this money after he took it away from a program that was established. That program took a while to upscale, where they could actually be effective, and now that's gone. Let me give you another one. He has made cuts to the CDC, right? That former director of Tom Frieden warned that we're unsafe at any level, right? Huge cuts to the National Institutes of Health, right? Each one of these things is what we're talking about. We're talking about gutting our governmental infrastructure, right? Because the only thing left now, right, once you've taken away any sense of kind of centralized coordination of response, whether that includes a private sector response or not, but you take it away the coordination abilities, right? That is where governance is absolutely critical. And I think this is also the opportunity that we have to take to make that case about the value of government, right? What government is supposed to do, not simply because we've heard ad nauseum, right, for the past 40 years about how government is bad, right? Whether it's from the Democrats or whether it's from the Republicans. Bill Clinton started it as much as Ronald Reagan started it, right? This is where we're at right now. And this is why when we're talking about things like, say, the Green New Deal, when we're talking about aggressive investment in our kind of like defensive infrastructures, to things like National Institute of Health, when we're talking about the CDC, Sean is absolutely right. All the modeling shows that when climate change continues to ramp up, these kind of viruses are not going to be killed off by hard freezes anymore. And we can only expect to see more going forward. That means our infrastructure has to be hardened. Sorry.
Yeah. No, and we're going to be seeing viruses that might have been around a million years ago come back to life because of the ice melting.
Yep.
Or the tundra fucking melting.
Well, you remember that story about, the reindeer with black plague in it, like that kind of defrosted and the kid got infected? I mean, it's like,
yeah.
This is not, I mean, it's time to just wake the hell up as Sean has a dry cough and now he's freaking me out. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think it's a cough for that reason. Maybe others,
no, but I don't think so either.
No, and it's also, yeah, I mean, we're going to expect more of this, and because of the past 150 years of, mainly the past 50 years of medicine, we don't have the immune system.
Yep.
Our bodies don't have immune systems to fight these diseases either.
Yeah, and
I know, we are ripe for a pandemic that will kill 1 billion or 2 billion people.
Yep.
I don't think people realize that. We are ripe for a pandemic that will wipe 1 billion people off the face of the earth within a month or two.
Well, and I'll tell you the way that we test this, right? We've gone from having the scientific method to be able to kind of test our preparedness by running trials. This is part of what the government does. You run scenarios that are not profitable to run, right? But necessary for the functioning of society over the long term. Now, you've gutted those institutions. These scenarios are not being run. So what we've decided that the way to handle this, the way to do that testing that would normally be done by, say, the National Institute of Health or the CDC, is to let it run in real time. We are going to test our privatization of healthcare by seeing what happens to people. In real time, watching how many people are going to die in this situation. How many of those folks that do not have sufficient health care, right? Thanks, Obama. I mean, how are they going to be responded? How many of those people are not going to be able to get the care they need? And how many hospitals are going to be overwhelmed because there's no centralizing figure or organization that's helping to coordinate efforts? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to those hospital beds that are needed for, say, for example, people have planned cancer surgery, but there's no beds because they're filled up with people that have got the virus?
Or we need respirators. Did you see that clip of the acting health human service or DHS? Yeah. No, I mean, Yeah, I mean, it's just we've hollowed out these institutions over 40 years. We've placed all these responsibilities into the free market. And, this is going to be a great case for Medicare for all.
Well, exactly.
We're going to have a crash course on why, we're going to have 1 million, 2 million people get sick who don't have health insurance. They're going to need health care. We're going to have millions of people without insurance who are going to need, or without even, sufficient insurance. Tens of millions of people who have to pay premiums or have to hit a cap before they are. It's ridiculous.
Well, there we have it. Well, there's something we hadn't planned on talking about so extensively, but we nonetheless have been talking about before the show.
We were talking
today.
About it before the show, but
we didn't have it on our notes, but we're this is front and center for our concerns, right? We had there, anyways. So, but yeah, I mean, this is, if anything, and I hate they haven't even talk about the coronavirus in these terms, right? But I mean, this is really what I see is at stake in this election.
Yeah, no, when I see with coronavirus, the stuff that's going on, I go back to globalization and the classes like that from college and how all this stuff works. And, globalization and capitalism is responsible for the climate change disaster we're going to be going through. And, globalization and stuff like this and capitalism, once again, is going to be responsible for, the fraud that's there, this pandemic and I'm not going to say this stuff like this wouldn't happen if we have a social society, but I am much more aware certain stuff like this would be thwarted more with a socialist society, with a society that had a government that invested in government functions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're even talking. I mean, this is even the case. If
this is a free for all right now.
Well, right, exactly. And what you're just talking about there too. I mean, you're even a robust, right, kind of social democracy like we see in kind of in Scandinavia, right? I mean, even that is an enormous improvement, right? I mean, over where we are now. So let me just throw this out there. We haven't talked about this yet, but this is a little quiz for everybody out there, right? As we're kind of thinking about this, let's just say that, let's not do worst case scenario, but let's say that this gets out of hand. The coronavirus gets out of hand, right? And then we do not have any kind of coordination that's happening from Central Command. So let me ask you this, Sean. Mm-hmm. Given the fact that in order to have an effective response, you need to have some sort of centralized coordination that has to be in the absence of any kind of factor, has to come through the government. What aspect of our government right now is still functioning and is able to coordinate on a massive scale?
What's that? I'm sorry.
What organization in our government right now is still functioning and is able to coordinate on a massive scale?
Post office? I don't know,
what? But think about for something like this. Serious question.
Nothing.
That Trump likes.
Department of Immigration?
It's the military.
Yeah.
The only organization that is left standing right now that is capable of facilitating this is the military. That should be a warning sign to everybody. That is the setup. That's what I'm saying. That is the setup. Now, I'm not saying, look, I am not here to say to you that Trump is going to call out martial law or something like this. But I'm saying this is the setup. This is where we've put ourselves right now. The only organization, and again, the military consistently is the only organization in the federal government that has high ratings among the public. This is what happens in the lead up to autocracy, to authoritarian regime rule. This is what fascism, proto-fascism looks like. And I am not saying that there are military leaders who want that. That is not the point at all. As a matter of fact, I think in most of those cases that they do not. But they are also in a situation where they recognize, we've seen this happen again and again, that the rule of law is being undermined right now. Right? And that's a scenario. You have a gutted federal government, the inability to reply or to respond in any meaningful way to kind of severe national challenges like a pandemic. And who's left standing? You have somebody who's at the head of things who does not tell the truth, not coordinated. Who's he going to tap? When the pressure reaches that level, who is he going to turn to try to coordinate that? And the only player that's on the field right now is the military. So watch that. Watch when you start having press conferences. If this pandemic, if this starts getting more serious, watch when you start seeing military leaders and National Guard leaders being brought into press conferences. And here, mark my words, this gets worse, this will happen. They will be brought in to try to make people feel more comfortable that things are under control. That is not a good step. So now that everybody thinks I'm a freaking conspiracy theorist, okay, we'll move on to the next thing, right? But I'm serious. That is serious. That is dead serious. And anybody who follows this stuff, anybody who studies the kind of authoritarian regimes will tell you this. So welcome to our world. So who knows? On a happier note, let's talk about South Carolina. They're still going to be able to have a primary because the outbreak hasn't gotten too bad yet. So I mean, so I just like I said in the lead up to this, the polling is like everywhere with Biden 20 points ahead, taking this by double digits, down to like 4 points within the margin of error of the polls. I mean, what's your sense of things in South Carolina?
What's that? I'm sorry. I'm
sorry, Twitter Sean. So I'm calling Twitter Sean. What is your sense of going into this in South Carolina?
I mean, I think Biden probably wins, but I don't think he gets a huge bump out of it on Super Tuesday. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, at this point, you got to think about how many people have already voted in California by mail. What, like 750,800 people? Yeah. So like those are a lot of votes that are already coming in. I don't see it swinging Texas. Sanders has a steady lead in Texas over everyone. No, I mean, like as long as Bernie breaks the threshold and steals delegates away from Biden, that's a victory.
Yeah, I'm really curious because we saw this trajectory where Sanders was.
And I also think the polling in South Carolina is weird. Like, you've seen a bunch of weird spikes
all over the place. I've never seen it this crazy.
Yeah, a bunch of like random spikes. So I mean, I think we really can't tell what's going on with South Carolina. But I mean, what happens. I'm not going to be upset if Bernie loses South Carolina. I'm more or less looking forward to Super Tuesday when all you people get ready to bend the knee.
Oh God, this is Sean trying to build a coalition. Sean trying to bring everybody together.
And knee. Hey, this is about power, okay?
Oh God. Well, let's look. You're right. I mean, it is about power, but
bending the knee.
Bend the knee. I don't know if this is the best motivating theme.
That's for next week's podcast.
That's for next week's podcast. So just get ready for Sean to kind of destroy any bridges
just
that
be
are
completely
built
belligerent.
Campaigns. Right.
Bring my social media belligerence.
Yes. Well, but I do want to say, this flies in the face of some of your other Twitter activity this week, which was chastising some folks, supporters of Sanders, that are going after Warren and other people.
I think the primary Warren hashtag is fucking stupid. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Warren's best chances at this point is to drop out after she loses Massachusetts, endorse Bernie. And no, I mean, I'm actually thinking in a legitimate way. I'm being a smartass and bend the knee, but no, what I think the best politicking here is for Sanders is to start negotiating with Warren, offer her packages, start guaranteeing that her staffers will be working in his administration, and her staffers will be working on using their wonkiness to implement, the reforms that Sanders wants to reform, which is pretty much in line with Warren. Mm-hmm. And no, I think you start making those negotiations and stuff like that. We'll guarantee these positions give us a list of people you want to have jobs in this administration, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and we'll find a spot for them to implement our progressive platform. No, I think that's the smartest thing. Primarying Elizabeth Warren in 2 years, I think, is pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah, I think it's insane.
I couldn't believe I saw that trending on Twitter. Like,
yeah, I mean, I saw the hashtag come out, but when you see it trending, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah,
that is like also, misspent time and energy, and even like whatever freaking warped fantasy you've got. Yes, exactly. Right, exactly.
And then also, then to follow up on our second point we were having, do we want to go into how many people give a fuck about the convention
Let's
rules?
get there. Let's just talk about that. Let me follow up with something about Adam Green, and then we'll get into this about the convention rules. Because here's this. This follows up. I was going to talk about him later, but this is a perfect time when you're talking about the outreach to Warren. And I think, right, just politically speaking, right. I mean, I think even the way that we should be talking about this right now is to say that in the case that you have a huge Super Tuesday win for Sanders, and he wins Massachusetts. Because right now, look, he's 8 points ahead in the latest poll in Massachusetts. That's Elizabeth Warren's home state. And all of you who've been listening to this podcast, you should know that I am not anti-Elizabeth Warren. Right. If anything, I was hoping for her candidacy to be a lot stronger than it was. And I think it's a travesty that she's polling as bad as she has, and that her campaign, I think, has failed her. Okay. I'm going to preface it with all that stuff. Right. And for Adam Green to go on today, or go on this, I think it was this week, it might have been the end of last week, to go on and basically saying that, in discussion of going forward, going all the way, not dropping out of the race, is there's a path to victory, saying that, Warren has a plan, a path to the nomination that doesn't require her to win any states. That is just messed up.
Yeah, and these are the same people who were yelling at Sanders in 2016 to drop out of the race. To not take it to the convention. And Bernie took it to the convention in order to get his platform implemented into the DNC rules.
Right. So, but I mean, we got to be really clear about this stuff, right? Because there's some Sanders supporters out there who basically want to play hypocrisy or play the high ground. Because you got to recognize that, look, Sanders did push for support from social super delegates. Right there, but for exactly the reason that you had, right, is I think he was pretty clear that he was not going to get the nomination. But the idea at that point was to give as much leverage going in front of the party platform. And you could have a variety of different reasons or positions on that right there, but denying it is not one. Right?
And this is not the rules that Sanders was pushing for at the convention.
Right.
The rules that Sanders were pushing for was to completely get rid of the superdelegates, period. Full stop, end of sentence, no second ballot.
Right.
This is just the compromise.
Absolutely. Right. Before we jump fully into the rules, let me say one more thing, and then I want to go full throttle on this, pick up exactly what you're talking about. One of the reasons why I think the messaging should be from the Sanders folks, especially if there's a big Super Tuesday win, is that Sanders and his campaign staff should be taking the initiative and reaching out to Elizabeth Warren's campaign. I think it is a bad frame if we put it all on Warren. Warren should drop out, and then she should appeal to Sanders. That is, politically speaking, that is a bad move, right? Politically speaking, we should be saying Sanders should be reaching out to her. Because I think what it does, when we start making some demands, Elizabeth Warren can run as long as she wants, right? And that the fact is that to sit there, it feeds into a whole discourse about mansplaining and telling women what to do that is not productive, frankly.
No.
So I think our demands, if we're going to be supporting Bernie Sanders, our demand should be for what Bernie Sanders should be doing. And I think that is a smart move. And let me say this about Adam Green. Adam Green, as much as he's pissed me off with this whole idea, which I think is just fantasy talk about the path without winning, is that one of the things he in an analysis fairly recently in some of the interviews he gave, he was, I think, onto something. Is that one of the things he was talking about, particularly about the Green New Deal and some other path, some other legislation, right? And saying that Sanders wanted to get that in play. Right, and he wanted the bill put on the floor. He wanted to get kind of support for it right away. And some of Elizabeth Warren's people had reached out, including Adam Green, reached out to him and said, "Listen, wait just a little, wait a week, maybe two, so that we can get additional support and get more signers on this." Right, and Sanders didn't, according to Green, didn't do that and moved right ahead. Right? Now, why do I say that? Is because I think what Adam Green, to his credit, what Adam Green is very smart about, he's very smart about those internal politics. And I think he knows that Elizabeth Warren has that kind of skill in ways that Sanders does not. Right? So if we're going to talk about an effective administration, right, not simply just like, can he win the election, but those are the outreaching that should be happening right now. Okay, I'm just going to set my piece on that, because then I want to turn to the fantasy play that is going on right now in the discussion about kind of like we need to follow the rules for the DNC nominating convention, and then the rules are going to set us free. Sean, I'll leave it to you.
Fuck the rules, okay? And 99.9% of the voters don't give a fuck about the convention rules, right? Like that's pretty much it. I think it's going to be like, I think people are like, I think it's fantasy land to think that like Sanders is going to go into the convention with a 35% plurality. There are states that Mike Bloomberg is not on Super Tuesday that Sanders will get delegates from. Sanders is going to win California, and he might get all 415 delegates in California. Like, no one else has reached a viable 15%. And Sanders'
you got
numbers
Warren
are
at
only
17 right now. Warren looks like she's at 17 in the latest poll out there.
I checked 538 this morning. Like, they have Warren at 13% as an aggregate of all the polls.
They do. But I mean, if you're talking about momentum polling, right? You have a pretty good poll that comes out as Berkeley IGS has her at 17%, but she's the only one. And I'm only putting that out there to say, if we're going to talk about,
she'll get a handful of delegates and not enough to steal from Sanders.
And my point right now, that poll right there represents what we see as an outlier, so to speak, on the upper end of things, right? So I'm only putting it out there for set. So that's what we're talking about, at least in the polling goes a scenario.
Like right now, the average is, I'm looking at 538. Sanders at 31, Biden 13, Warren 12.
Yep.
And then Bloomberg and Buttigieg. And so, if he gets all 415 delegates, I think there's a possibility of Sanders going in with 45% of the delegates. And if he goes into the convention with like 42 to like 49% of the delegates, there is absolutely no way you can deny him from getting the nomination.
Well, there is a way.
And no, there is a way. And they're talking about it. But, you want to do this? All right, Sanders people won't come out and vote, and you just fractured the party for 20 years.
Yeah, and I think do
you want to fracture the party for 20 years or 30 years, a whole entire generation, and then watch us fall into an autocratic society because of your infighting,
right?
Or your unwillingness to coalesce around a candidate that we really need for this time, right? There's two candidates for this time, and it's Warren and Sanders.
Yep.
And it looks like Sanders going to get it. But Sanders is the nominee for this time and period that we are in, simply because we have to have someone who is willing to fight just as hard as these neo-fascists are within the Trump administration.
Yep.
That's it. This is as close to a confrontation as we're going to get with these ideologies, and we have to go hard to the left. And we have to tell people this racism, this fascism will not stand. And you know what? If the party wants to, the nominating convention wants to hand it to someone else because he does not have a majority, then you know what? I'm not going to worry about the election. I'm worrying about protesting in the streets.
Yep.
At that point.
So let me say two things here. One, when Shonda says, for example, we need to go hard to the left, let's just remember, let's put this in a context. Hard to the left means basically middle of the road in most industrialized countries, right? I mean, we're talking about a centrist position in most industrialized countries. This is our New Deal shot for my generation. This is exactly it. Right. So when we're talking about because what you see happening in the media right now is that when they say Sanders, socialist, left, and all that stuff, they want you to think about autocratic regimes and Stalinist USSR. And what we're talking about Germany, right? We're talking about, like Finland is like the outlier, or Denmark,
Yeah.
right? As Chris Matthews say. So let's say that number one, right? So the second thing is that what we should also, this is just my advice to the like the Bernie folks out there. When you see these articles in the New York Times right now about interviews with 93 superdelegates and how that they are trying to hatch a plan that will kind of like take the nomination away from Bernie Sanders, you have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. What they are doing right now is that they're broadcasting fear to try to drive the polling and drive people away from that. I do not deny for a second that there are probably some superdelegates in there that would rather sink the party, right, than hand Sanders the nomination. But and again, I may be proven wrong on this, but I think if you got Sanders that's going to go in there with 45%, and you've got a party that has been talking about Donald Trump as an existential threat to the future of American democracy, that enough of those people are going to like, okay, yeah. I mean, like Donald Trump is bad. Although Donald Trump is bad, people
that's
do
pretty
it.
much like already where we're at. I mean, there's been polling out in Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
55% with the latest like Sanders poll from Muhlenberg College said Donald Trump does not deserve re-election.
Exactly. So my only point is this, right? Because the tendency to go crazy, like focus so much on what is happening in these superdelegates and thing. Yes, obviously we need to pay attention to that, but eyes on the prize, folks. Conspiracy, anything that sounds like big conspiracy theory will not go over well in terms of what has to happen right now.
We are also in a point where they can throw shit against the wall and it's just not going to stick because we are too close to Super Tuesday. Inoculation for bad stories and bad oppo takes a week or two.
Yep.
Takes time. This is why I was saying last week with the Nevada debate was so important that he skated by, because this debate is too close to the South Carolina primary, which is then too close to the Super Tuesday, and because it's so close, the timing is so close, you had to trip them up at the Nevada thing, and everyone went after Bloomberg. Bernie went on by, he crushed it in Nevada, and here we are.
Yep.
I mean, like, this is pretty much it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just like the time to have derailed his campaign was going into the Nevada debates, and no one did it. And we saw the shit show earlier this week. Nothing stuck to Sanders. It's been fun watching people, come around the acceptances of grief, the stages of grief that he's most likely going to be the nominee. I have talked to some people in Harrisburg who are starting to bend the knee.
Jesus Christ. You're not going to give that up, are you?
No. But no, I mean, like we were talking about this before, and I had a really good conversation with someone who, I'm trying to not out them, someone who has a really nice position within the Democratic Party in the state, someone who I can trust to talk to,
and who's genuine person,
very good person,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. They've been involved with the Democratic Party their whole entire life. They've been in different administrations. They're doing stuff here in Harrisburg, and they had a really good. We had a really good conversation. Like, when they went back home, this person told me, like, they talked to their niece, who's also a millennial, and asked them, like, why they supported Sanders. And, we were at the bar and we ran into each other. We were talking, and they came up to me and they were like, I don't want you to get defensive. I know you're a big Sanders supporter, but why? Like, why is it that your generation? She's like, because they can't say it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, at least asking Sanders supporters why they support him is a lot better of a dialogue.
Right.
For party. It's a dialogue that party people should be having, period.
Right.
They should be asking people like me and others why we support Sanders. Because I think, once you start asking those questions, we're not different ideologically. I mean, we all support the same issues and stuff like that. It's about the power, and it's also my dynamics growing up. And it's I support Sanders. I grew up in a union household. I know what happens in a union that's busted. I watched my dad lose more than half his salary, and then like everything else, and I tell them that like no, it's like my experiences growing up, but also because Bernie's a labor person. I know he will fight for me. Biden is not friendly with labor. Bloomberg is not friendly with labor. Buttigieg is a rat. And you explain it to these people, like, no, it's also looking through a labor lens and through the lens of Occupy Wall Street and stuff like that. I mean, did you see that tweet I put out there? Like, how many of my followers who are Bernie supporters go back to Occupy?
Yeah.
A lot of us do.
Yep.
I mean, like, that was a starting point for a lot of people in my generation to get involved in activism. And it's like, and Bernie Sanders is our candidate. He is the Occupy Wall Street candidate. And he was in 2016, and he is that now.
Yeah, he was the first to take up the mantle, right? I mean, this is what if you talk about the one thing that came out of Occupy, right? Forget all the drum circles and like the general
anarchist,
right. I mean, all the kind of like extreme characterizations that they always put this. But if you think about the one thing, the 1% and the 99%, 1% and the 99%. It was a way of congealing in a very direct and simple way what has happened and what is continuing to happen.
And you look at the arc, right, with Occupy, especially Occupy Philadelphia. You have Occupy Philly that happened. You get Jim Kenney elected in progressive fashion in 2015. You get Helen Gim elected then. You have Sanders run for office. You have
Larry Krasner.
Well, no. Then you have all the Sanders staffers, who left the campaign, formed Reclaim Philadelphia. Reclaim got Larry Krasner elected. They got Kendra Brooks elected. Reclaim just merged into a large organization called Pennsylvania Stands Up with Keystone Progress, all the indivisible groups, and other, Lancaster Stands Up, York Stands Up. Like, this is what the Occupy movement, the arc of that movement has done.
Right.
Like, it's, I don't know. There's just no denying that. Like, but yeah.
No, I think it's dead on. I mean, look, I think that kind of conversation is so important because look, we know this abstractly, but seriously thinking, the millennial generation, right? That is the largest generation in American history, right? Right. It's like, it is the next wave, right? My generation, Gen X, right, kind of like got caught between this, like in like a demographic, like a little hole where we didn't have any kind of power. The boomers and those folks have kind of, they've developed, and kind of older Gen Xers have kind of bought into this kind of way of doing politics that was rooted in the Reagan administration and a series of defeats of the not civil rights movement, but of that the aspirations of the 1960s. And now you've got a whole generation, your generation, right, that is coming,
and between this time, we have a whole generation of voters who never understood that the Democratic Party was a working class party.
Right.
And that's the biggest failure of this party.
Exactly. And I think that to have the number one conversation that has to happen right now, right? I mean, again, AOC also deserves a huge, huge shout out in all of this because she has been the face now. Right, that kind of come and say, this is what we see kind of going forward. So it's not just a small segment of the existing elected officials, but it is the face of this new generation.
And it's also, I think someone else said a really good point, like, Obama was the floor for this generation. Yeah. He's not the ceiling.
Right.
Like, Obama set the standard as being the floor.
That's a great point.
For where we can go after this.
Yep.
And our Democratic nominees are only going to get further and further to the left. And Sanders is going to reset that floor after this. Sanders is setting the floor for a whole entire generation of 18-year-olds coming out of college, coming out of high school and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why, the fact that you have him is like the way he leads into Super Tuesday, right, is not being like, let's super cautious and let's use poll tested messaging. No, he's showing up with tech workers. From the heart. Well, he's showing up with tech workers on the line as part of a protest against Amazon and Google and Facebook, who are demanding both climate action and kind of real living wages in that area and affordable housing. That's how Sanders is going in, which is amazing.
who was the progressive the populist who ran in, is it like 1890, like the 1890s, early 1900s?
Oh, the populist movement you're talking about.
But there was someone that like was running for president.
Yeah.
I don't know if we got Harding or Taft out of that election, or like who was prior to Roosevelt. But like there was someone who ran, who was taking the train, speaking to the workers pretty much in this country.
William Jennings Bryan.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like this is exactly like what Sanders is doing, but 100 some years later, is pulling off that same. He's talking to picket line workers, you know, instead of speaking in front of the people, the establishment.
Yep.
I know, and he has. I mean, you see the response of the modern day Carnegies, the Mellons, and the Scaife. Like you're seeing that right now with Bloomberg and stuff like that. Like, no, I mean, like, no, we are we are in a robber baron period, and Sanders is the candidate. We need to get out of that.
Yeah, and I think that it's on us, right? On all of us who are supporting Bernie Sanders and going on here. If we believe that it's not me, us, for that slogan, right? It is also on us, right? In terms of how we proceed going forward, right? This is the time to, like, I mean, look, there's going to be some like dancing on some graves. I get that, right? But this is also the time to have sincere outreaches. That's why I thought that conversation that you were telling me about was so important, right? The fact is seriously having that, because look, we are not here like to kind of like say everything that you've done is horrible. We're saying that it's a new day, and we want you part of this.
It's our turn.
It's our turn. And it's like, and not because it's our turn just because of some sort of sense of like, you know, we deserve it, but because we need it. And the energy and the movement is the only thing that is going to get us to where we need to be. It's the only thing that's going to get us a Green New Deal. It's the only thing that's going to defend us against climate change. It's the only thing that's going to bring back a government that works for people. That's it. So that's on us. And we cannot look at Sanders as, you know, as much as you could love Bernie Sanders as a character and all this stuff like this, he is not going to be the one that's going to do it all on us. This is not a messiah. He's ahead, and he's helped us congeal a movement, and now it is up to that movement to make sure that we keep our nose to the grindstone, organize from like down the street to nationally.
I think there's one more thing I think we should talk about.
Yeah, I do too. Go ahead.
And that's going to be the purging that's about to happen at MSNBC.
Oh yeah, that's it. You mean I know that the Central Park Committee is getting ready.
and Chris Matthews is going to be the first person brought out to the guillotine.
Yeah.
Speaking of the guillotine.
Speaking of the guillotine. Yes, Sir Jacobin, yes.
Did you see the hats that Bloomberg was selling this week?
I did. I also saw all the memes of the hats.
Yes. I love like the one with the guillotine, and on the back it says "Bring in the boss."
Bring in the boss. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Because but
seriously, what Chris Matthews did in that interview with Elizabeth Warren was abhorrent. That was fucking ridiculous. That was that was worse than the comments he made. Oh my God, yeah.
About Bernie Sanders and the Maginot Line.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, how do you fucking ask someone? Why do you believe that versus hers? And like the way he responded, like, so you don't believe Bloomberg because you're basing it on someone's word? Yeah, like that's usually how these things happen.
Well, and if you watch,
I can guarantee you,
right,
if a woman who's getting discriminated against in the workplace for being pregnant and she says something about it, odds are like 9-10 times out of 10 she's not lying.
No, exactly. But here it's even worse than that, though. Not only I agree 100% with what you just said, but not only that, but in that instance, and there's been reporting on it. There's actually additional witnesses to it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not. I mean, that's how horrible what Matthew said was. And I think Elizabeth. If you watch that interview, Elizabeth Warren sat there and she sat there like literally thought like, you know,
are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like initially, I think she initially thought like he's saying that as like, you know, this is what these other people say, and then you see this like click of realization, like almost immediately, like, holy shit, he's actually asking me this question, like sincerely.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't like string him through. I mean, like run him through.
I mean, like, you know, it's where like Chris Matthews is not doing any favors for Mike Bloomberg in that spot either.
You don't think so?
I mean, like, the way he has gotten so fucking obnoxious over the past couple, like, okay, so
first of all, Chris Matthews has never been not obnoxious. So let's just start there.
He's gotten like worse.
Yeah, he's removed all the cloaks of respectability is basically what it's come down to.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't been watching MSNBC at all over the past 5 years. Like only when I'm home. But I'll tell you one thing, it was sure fun was watching it after the Nevada primary, and like, I mean, you saw like the one guy, Steven Jackson or Jamal Jackson, commentator got to. After he basically saying that, like Nina Turner and other kind of representatives of him, African American women, were coming from, what do you call it, the island of misfit black women? Yeah, is what he said. Yep, Jason Jackson. Yeah, he's been sidelined for the moment. I don't think he's coming back. I think you're starting to go see purges happening at MSNBC.
Well, they've already indicated that at least they say they're going to bring on some more Bernie people because, look, they're a business and they see the writing on the wall and they're trying to kind of like hedge their bets that they're actually going to have some degree of relevance in the
obviously like this never Trumper Republican sidecast hasn't worked out for them. I mean,
not so good. No, meanwhile, it's like, you know, you watch Rachel Maddow show right now, and Rachel Maddow show was all like coronavirus, right?
Russia.
What's happening in Russia, right? Look at this trial, and you're like, wait a minute, didn't a primary just take place? Didn't it wasn't it just? And she's like, her way through is like, okay, I'm going to steer around all this stuff to try to see if I come out on the end.
Do you think she's doing that intentionally, or that's a producer thing?
Oh, no,
just
that's
skip
her.
over.
I think that's her.
Just gloss over the primary from even happening.
She has been taking it up a little bit, but if you compare her show to Chris Hayes' show, right? I think if I had to guess, this is what I think is happening in part of that discussion, because she and Chris Hayes they talk fairly often, right? I mean, if you even get that in the kind of the between thing banter about them, you know, watching each other's shows and talking about each other going on. I think there's general respect there, and you know, they're two of the few kind of liberal commentators that are left, like at MSNBC. So, and my guess is that Chris Hayes' show leads directly into Rachel Maddow's show, and I think the viewership for Chris Hayes' show has been going up. And he's been focusing quite a bit on the primaries, in addition to some other stuff too as well, but on the primaries and that kind of stuff. And I think Maddow is basically following up with continuing on trajectories that are getting left out of the discussion in the wake of the primaries. So she's minimizing her coverage of that, where Hayes is actually maximizing it.
And just got some bit of breaking news, I guess.
Oh, cool. Let's hear it.
Bernie Sanders just picked up the endorsement of Lumumba, the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi.
Whoa.
He picked up the endorsement by having citizens coming out and doing their own caucus, and he decided his endorsement based on the results of that caucus of the citizens that showed up.
That dude's popularity is off the charts, too.
Yeah. No, like this is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Chewbacca Lumumba, mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. Now, his parents were... He has a radical background, right?
Yeah, his father was also, I don't know if he was mayor, too, as well for a while, or head of city council. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely lefty background, radical background. I mean...
Like, weathered underground, like, not that bad, but, like, almost like the same lefty backgrounds, the DA from San Francisco that just got elected.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and what this guy is,
very radical organizing parents,
right? Yeah, and what this guy is basically, you know, he grew up in that context, right? And but he has got by some, I mean, again, I don't follow his career very closely. I'm obviously not in that community, but the reporting that I saw when he won election, was it 2 years ago? Was it part of the 2018, or was that his re-election in 2018? I don't remember. But basically they're saying what people were saying about him at that point is like, not only does he carry with it some traditions of this kind of like, say, radical populism, if you will, lefty populism in some way, but he has got better political skills than his father did. Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's it. And, you know, the support of this guy has just been great. And you look at what his platforms have been and what he's been campaigning on. This is part of the future.
I also got some other breaking news.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's gotten the Tim Kaine endorsement.
Oh, good.
So that'll cancel each other out.
Yeah, that'll definitely. Well, I mean, Tim Kaine brought so. I mean, come on, he brought so much to the Hillary Clinton's ticket. He brought the, come on. He brought like grandpas in sweaters off the chair and got him out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim Kaine, the guy who was designed to kind of not draw any attention to himself or do anything. He gives him his endorsement. Great. Hands up. Wait. So anyways,
that's pretty much all I have for this.
Yeah, I think that's
segment.
it for today too as well. I do encourage everybody pay attention on Sunday for Bernie Sanders' rally of the tech workers. I think that's going to be. I've got this feeling that is going to be kind of an important moment. At the same time, we should recognize that there's California. The numbers of cases of coronavirus has been increasing in Northern California. We're
doing a second segment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, he said that's it for today. I was like, what?
Oh, no. It for this section. I'm sorry. It's for this section.
No problem.
Sorry, my bad. All right, everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I want to remind you that you can become a member of Raging Chicken by going to patreon.com/RC Press today. And just for fun, maybe we can see this as kind of like a we're going to play them off the stage music. This is great music from friend of the show, Ben. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll be right back.
I'm not Greta Thunberg, but I'll solve the kind of crisis. Don't ask how, please, I'm rich. And you ain't got shit to say. I checked one of my terminals just today. Wait, why are we talking? You work less than that terminal, for heaven's sake. And I hate to say it, but I love to do it. Kick your grandma out of the neighborhood with the rezoning. Now billionaires like me own it. And Ray Kelly, that's a big homie, because he took care of all of my foes and tended to the broken windows.
Bloomberg peasants, like Bloomberg peasants, the Bloomberg peasants.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1942. That was the day that Sue Cowan Williams filed a lawsuit for equal pay for black teachers in Little Rock, Arkansas. 86 black teachers worked in the city's segregated school system. They were all members of the Little Rock Classroom Teachers Association. In 1941, the teachers formed a salary adjustment committee to look into pay discrimination. What they found there was a wide gap between black and white salaries. The average white elementary school teacher made $526 a year, while the black teacher earned only $321. White high school teachers brought home $856 a year, while black teachers only made $567. Backed with this research, the committee presented a petition to the school board demanding an end to pay discrimination. The board tabled the petition, and that summer passed another round of unequal pay raises. The teachers then approached the NAACP and asked them to handle their case. Thurgood Marshall agreed to take up the lawsuit. Marshall would go on to become the first black U.S. Supreme Court justice. Sue Cowan Williams, the head of the English department at Dunbar High School, was selected as the plaintiff for the case. The teachers lost their lawsuit and then won on appeal, but Williams paid a price for her involvement. The next school year, the school district did not renew her contract. She was finally rehired to teach at Dunbar a decade later. But first, the school superintendent called Williams to ask her if she had, quote, learned her lesson. It was a lesson that many workers have learned, that there is often a high personal cost for standing up for justice on the job. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to Raging Chickens Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, back again with Sean Kitchen. And we're here to talk a little stuff happening a little bit more locally, right here in PA. So, Sean, take us away, man.
Back on the Bernie train.
Choo-choo.
So, Bernie, a couple polls came out this past week. Bernie has been pretty much what I call the Brexit states, has been leading the polling in the Brexit states in the primary and beating Trump. And this is important because, like, trade, Bernie running to the left of Trump on trade is what's going to win this election.
Yep.
We're starting to see it here in Pennsylvania. Bernie's going to be leading has 25%. He's up by 5% against Biden. It's actually like pretty cool that he might actually win Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and you know what? There's some polling that just came out from Muhlenberg College too as well that does the head-to-heads. Right? Let me run them through for you. So you have this is in PA, Pennsylvania, right? Bloomberg 45, Trump 48. Buttigieg 45, Trump 46. Klobuchar 44, Trump 45. Warren 47, Trump 47. Biden 47, Trump 47. Sanders 49, Trump 46. All right? Right now, that's the latest polling coming from Muhlenberg College. Sanders is the only candidate right now that says it could beat Trump in there, and that's Sanders +3.
But he's not electable. He doesn't have the electability.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? This is exactly why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, I know. Like anyone.
One more. Let me give you one more. So this is just so you talk about an outlier. This just came out from YouGov, right? So that was Muhlenberg College. And here's YouGov. Now Muhlenberg College, 538 gives them an A+ rating in terms of polling. Okay. So that's why I started with that one, because that is the standard in Pennsylvania in many ways, right? They're one of the standards in Pennsylvania. So if you go to YouGov, right, here you go. Warren versus Trump, 45 to 45. Klobuchar versus Trump, 43 to 43. Buttigieg versus Trump, 44 to 44. Biden versus Trump, Biden 46, Trump 45. That's Biden +1. Sanders 47, Trump 45, Sanders +2 in Pennsylvania. All right? Do you need one more? No, I don't think we need one more. We go through that. So those are the two of the most recent ones that were released. They both have you've got the A+ polling from Muhlenberg College shows that Bernie Sanders is the only one that's going to come out in Pennsylvania. Now, again, we have got time before then. I get that. But let's pay attention to what's actually happening here, right? I mean, this is going
to be like when Sanders on his victory lap.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean,
no, but I'm saying to your point before when we were talking about Super Tuesday, right? If Sanders has a big win on Super Tuesday, those numbers are only going to increase in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and also Warren will probably drop out by then. The reason why this argument about waiting out till the nomination, are you just going to drain all your resources and just keep your hat in the ring until the convention and that's it? Is that really you're not going to campaign at all? Because after Tuesday, Pete's done, Klobuchar's done, and Warren are effectively done.
Yep.
I mean, they don't have the resources, they don't have the campaign staff, they don't have the capacity to run national campaigns. Warren does, but she doesn't have the money. She's burning through it like there's no tomorrow. Sanders was fighting for Super Tuesday from the beginning, organizing for Super Tuesday from the beginning, while these other candidates were fighting for just to get a win early on. And, Sanders won. So, don't want to get caught up too much up in the weeds or the past, but the Iowa caucuses have been officially tabulated.
Yep.
And Pete's the winner.
Pete is the winner.
They made that point last night.
They did. It has not changed the delegate allocations at all or anything like this, but he did come out on top. And look, kudos to him, right? I mean, coming out from absolutely nowhere.
In an all-white state.
No, well, yeah, right. I mean, look, all of it aside, I mean, that is still a victory, right, of an out gay man, right, in a Midwestern
state.
State, rather. That's I mean, you got to recognize
no, that's good.
that.
Yeah, no. I mean, for as much as we shit on Buttigieg, like I do personally, I think that like people like, oh well, he's doing this because he's gay is an absolutely horrible retort from people in the Democrat community. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
No, I think that like what he is going to accomplish will be very good for the community and for people within the community, and to get people to come out more comfortably, and to show like doing something like this is possible. So,
right. I mean, look, I think what the one thing that Buttigieg has done, I think, I think after the campaign is done, that people are going to start paying more attention to this and talking a bit more about it in a little bit more relaxed way, right? Because the fact is that the one thing that he has done is that not only we feel more people are comfortable as he has not waffled once, right, on the fact that he's an out gay man and that he has his husband in the audience and talking from the point of like, yep, this is just. This, I'm in this race just like everyone else, right? There was no qualifications. There was no and he was invited into the, it was just amazing. Not invited in. So he was there, but people were kind of like not trying to like off-put him because of that. That is a watershed in American history. A watershed in American politics. And I hope that, as much as I don't like his politics, I don't like his campaign, I have trouble listening to him because he reminds me of a very specific kind of person that I went to college with, right? Not just an individual, but a kind of person that comes out of political science, which has a particular kind of approach to the world. It's that consultancy talk stuff and everything like this. That's just my own bias. But the fact is, I will always, always, always be pointing to this time and say, yep, that is a turning point in American history when we can have a candidate like him do so well to win in the Iowa caucuses, and do extraordinarily well and across the primaries. And we got to recognize that as part of it. But anyways, that'll be the full totality of my praise for Buttigieg for the rest of the campaign, I think. But crazy. Cool. Any other thoughts on the kind of the state of the race in Pennsylvania?
No. Nothing too much. Petitions were dropped off last week. Petitions were being challenged soon, and a few people locally are getting kicked off the ballot, which is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
I mean, I'm sorry, but like, I got into an argument with my friend Steven about this from from Capital Star. And he was pretty much calling me a machine hack when I told him, like, I am all for kicking people off the ballot for invalid signatures and fucked up paperwork. Sorry, it's part of the rules.
John, hypocrisy! Hypocrisy!
No.
Hypocrisy! Hypocrisy!
You're a lying dog faced pony shoulder.
Okay, it's not hypocrisy.
I'm just joking with you.
I know, but okay, I'm going to explain this to make myself sound good. Okay,
yeah, go for it.
And that's like a hypocritical.
Yeah. Let's see if you can do it.
Like,
I'll give you 30 seconds.
There should be a bar. You should have to be able to get over that legal bar of getting on the ballot. It's the most simple thing in politics, and if you can't take the time to get onto the ballot in a correct way, then I don't have sympathy for you to get knocked off the ballot. I mean, like, a couple of the people out here fucked up their affidavits, literally signed the affidavit the day of, right? Instead of the last day of collecting, they signed it the first day of collecting, and they dated it the wrong date. So instead of dating it like January, they dated it January 28th, the first day of collecting signatures, when the affidavit states that all these signatures are valid. So therefore it has to be dated on the last day of circulation. So the person, this is Bobby Jeffries, the alt-right troll that was going after me and his fucking crew of people. So yeah, I'm taking solace in seeing this little shithead get kicked off the ballot. Sorry, but
do you have anything bad to say about him?
I know, someone else got kicked off the ballot by asking independents and Republicans to sign their petitions and non-registered voters. So it's yeah, I mean, they're sorry, but for that stuff, we're not talking about the nominating convention, but you should be able to follow the rules to get onto the ballot. I mean, it's the first thing I ask people when, like, can you get on the ballot? Before I like decide to invest in helping them, it's like, will you actually be able to get on the ballot? Because it's like, you don't want to waste time, energy consulting with people or working with people, and then they can't even get on the fucking ballot. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We already have it. There's Sean making himself feel good and look better to the world after his giant hypocrisy when it comes to rule following. But other than that,
I only like the rules when they're beneficial to me. Okay?
There you go. Hubris.
As Bernie Sanders should have said. Okay?
There you go. I only want the rules to apply when they help me.
Yeah. So.
Crazy.
Let's just burn through this.
Yeah, I burned through this. Yeah, so I want to highlight something. This was pretty amazing. I've talked about this before. I mentioned it last week on campus that we launched this thing called I'm not on campus, on the podcast. Launched this thing on Kutztown University's campus called the Healthy Campus Bill of Rights. And I told you that I'd tell you a little bit more about it this week, and we had our first town hall this week. So the idea is this. Healthy Campus Bill of Rights. You've heard me especially talk about like mold conditions in the building that I work in and across our campus. There's going to be people are going to find out more about what is happening in the counseling services at Kutztown University and some other state system schools soon enough. You're also going to hear more about kind of what's it actually like, what kind of conditions of toxicity exist, not just in terms of toxicity in terms of chemicals and stuff like that, but in terms of power relationships on our campus. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this coming up. The idea is that there were people that were fighting this. There, say, women in the Women's Center who've been kind of dealing with kind of toxic relationships and doing kind of like amazing work. African American students calling attention to kind of race questions. Faculty union that I've been part of too as well, obviously dealing with kind of lying when it comes to budgeting and so on. And all this existing within, those are just some examples I'm just touching up on right now, exist within a pressurized climate of, no pun, pressurized climate of climate change. Right, the idea is like we can't afford to be diddling around here anymore. And just so you know, Healthy Campus Bill of Rights, I'll put a link in there too as well. I just want to run through here's what the idea is, how we're understanding what the campaign is about. Is like, one, we talk for a healthy working and learning environment, and that means buildings free from mold and harmful contaminants, a culture free from abusive and toxic power relationships. We want to be empowered to report abuse and unhealthy conditions without the fear of reprisals. We want a proactive commitment to physical safety and mental health care. We want a welcoming, fully staffed campus health center. We want a low student-to-faculty ratio. And we want transparent policies to support a diverse faculty and student body that reflects the demographics of the state. So that's that first part. Second part, a campus investment in our financial health. Advocacy for ending crippling student debt. Because that's it. We're seeing this this is a crisis, right? And we have legislation, the PA promise, which frankly, for my taste, doesn't go far enough. But the PA promise, we think that this is something that people should be behind. Faculty, students, and administration should be fighting for this in our state legislature. And we think that anybody who works on our campus should have access to an affordable, comprehensive 12-month healthcare plan. And every worker on our campus should be making a living wage that includes student workers, that includes unionized and non-unionized workers alike. Right? Finally, we have a campus infrastructure to match the climate crisis, an actionable plan to transition off fossil fuels by 2030, a significant increase in locally sourced food, a significant funding for students, faculty, and staff to conduct research to combat climate change, and the impacts of climate change in Pennsylvania. And so that's been what we've been organizing about. We've been having a petition drive that's going out and talking to people about this, getting people to sign the petition. We have over 300 signatures already. We've only been doing this for about a week and a half. We had a shout out in the two of the dining areas on our campus that was basically taking over that space. The academic forum I got to do. I've been dreaming of doing this for a long time. Going in there and basically announcing what this is, and then going around and getting people to sign our petitions that were there, talking about those issues, and. It's been heartening having conversations to people and learning other people's stories, right? And we also saw this Healthy Campus Bill of Rights as a place to begin a discussion. It's not the end of it. Because already, since we first launched this, we've had like suggestions for revisions and additions and things like this that have been incredible. I'll give you an example. Shayna Rose is a alumni of Kutztown University. She will be on campus next March 3rd. I will put a link to the notes in here. March 3rd to talk about the climate, like addressing the climate crisis through institutions, right? And she was over in the at the UN climate summits. She's been there for a couple times now. She graduated, I think, three years ago. I think she said. She came. She told me this, and she told this in our town hall the other night too, as well. That she's been working with some folks down at Westchester University, right? Again, part of the state system of higher education, and they were getting kudos from Mary Robinson. Mary Robinson, the president of Ireland, that Mary Robinson, right? UN person, all this kind of, that Mary Robinson, getting praise because they have a plan and they are on track to meet this plan to be off or be carbon neutral by 2025. I thought when we put in 2030 as a target, a transition off fossil fuels will be carbon neutral. I thought that was like, okay, this is let's go for it. And it turns out Westchester, like little over an hour from Kutztown University, right, is already on track to be carbon neutral by 2025. So when we hear administrators basically say things like, this is pie in the sky. When Shayna told the story is that when she came to the administration years ago, when she was still a student, I believe, and was saying that we should be doing this here at Kutztown University, she was told by our provost that, pat you on the back. Yes, I see that you want to be carbon neutral by 2025, but she says, you're thinking too small. This is just a fad that's going to go away. And so refused to do anything about it and wished her away. Right? That was the attitude, and it crystallized so many people's experience with dealing with our administration. Right? She was talking about it from the climate perspective and other. So anyways, we're going to be partnering with her, and she's connected with the Sunrise Movement now too as well. Right? She's connected up with the sustainability programs that are happening in the state system. It's fantastic. But that's just an example. We had other people come forward from a range of different kind of perspectives on this stuff. We're going to build that up. But please, if you are out at Kutztown University, she's going to be on a panel with some amazing folks out at Kutztown University on March 3rd. I believe it's at 7 p.m. I will put the link to the flyer and the information in the notes for today's thing. So come out if you can. But so anyways, so we put this out. We could do the signatories, and then we have a town hall on Wednesday night. Right? It was a pretty quick turnaround, and we got about I don't know, maybe 25 people or so to come out, right? Which is pretty good. We thought that was more even than we were maybe even expecting. We didn't know what we're going to get. But what was amazing is that we had people come forward and tell their stories about what brought them here to that town hall. Because most of the people that were in that room I did not know. And most of them were students. And they were telling their stories about being just dismissed by the administration for disabilities, right? For harassment. Right? They were talking about their experience of feeling like they just had to deal with it all on their own. And talked about when they heard these announcements in the academic forum, when they saw this Healthy Campus Bill of Rights, they had hoped that this would be an opportunity, that this might be finally a chance to kind of address these things. And it just took me back. It was incredible. And I'm reading right now, Becky Bond's book, she was like, on the original, the 2016 Sanders campaign about distributive organizing and stuff like this. And it's called Rules for Revolutionaries is the book. And I'm just forgetting her co-author who was absolutely instrumental in developing those things too as well. I always forget his name. I can't remember why, but whatever. But Becky Bonds, and in that book, they talk about how in her Sanders campaign, one of the things that they took this leap of faith, and they basically said that it's not that people are apathetic. It's not that people don't care. It's not that people don't know what's going on. It's just that nobody's asked them to do anything. Nobody's asked them to come forward and participate in a genuine way. And that was the leap of faith they took. And what they found, it was that they were overwhelmed in the response. Right? And there was an echo of that at this town hall the other night. Person after person talk about the ways in which they had to deal with these struggles on an individual basis, and they finally feel like they've got a space to kind of talk about this stuff in a sustained way to people who are going to listen. And I think that's the message. That is the ground up message, that the power lies in us. The power is not in the administration's hand. The power is not in like whatever institution it might be, whether it's our unions, whether it's our university administration, whether it's our state politics. Right? It depends on us and taking that risk with each other to take that step forward. So I'm really looking forward to this. We've already got some inquiries from other campuses who saw what we were doing and say, "Hey, how do we do this ourselves on our campus?" And it's blown me away. So, Healthy Campus Bill of Rights is going forward. We're going to have more events that are coming up. Next Tuesday is going to be a climate panel featuring Shana Rose and a cast of amazing characters. So hopefully you'll come out for that if you can. The other thing that I want to mention, and again, look. You've heard me talk ad nauseum about about this whole interest-based bargaining garbage that our union kind of engaged in for our last contract, and what my primary issue has always been. Not that the specifics of what would end up in the contract and how much I'd get paid. That's not the freaking issue. The whole issue is it all amounted to, one, a return to closed-door discussions and not harnessing the power that we came out of our 2016 strike with. Basically telling all of us to go back into our rooms, go back to what we're doing, and that they'll take care of it. It's that business unionism model that has just basically ripped a hole in the power or in the potential of our own power. And right now, there was all these side letter agreements as part of this like package they put together for this contract, right? I would argue that the side letters was a way of kind of getting around some of the stuff in the contract. We can have that as another discussion another time. And one of the key things was this idea that there'd be a sick pay buyout that would allow people to retire early. In other words, that you get a higher number of your sick pay, the sick days that you have not taken, usually at the end of your contract, you're going to retire, you get paid out for that to a certain percentage. This would allow you kind of a bigger payout, right, as it's meant to be as an encouragement to people to retire. The stick was, of course, that in order for them to be able to do this, they would require 200 faculty members to take the deal. Well, there is less than a week left now, and they're short. Right? It's unclear what's going to happen to those faculty members who already said they're going to retire. Right? Are they going to be forced to retire now without that sick pay buyout? We'll see how that plays out. That's all. As you heard me talk about before, this is also happening as the chancellor has gone out on his own without consulting the faculty union, their new good friends, without talking to the faculty union about, basically announcing retrenchment to everybody after he had promised his good buddies that that's not what would happen. And, he listened very carefully to the faculty union's concerns about why it was a problem that he went and announced to the media and the state government and the board of, all this kind of garbage, right? And now we're finding out that this might be yet another stick that will be used to facilitate the process of retrenchment, right? When we decide to join hands in some sort of fake solidarity with the people who are above us, our administrators, our bosses, and it is nothing but window dressing. This is what we get. And I fear the worst, folks. Yes, and maybe my worst fears will not be proclaimed, but I've been talking about this now for a year and a half. About a year solidly since last year's budget hearings about this was what was going to happen. And I hate being right. So, I just hope it's not too late, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. So I will keep you abreast of what's happening here, what's happening in the state system of higher education, and the potential of programs being eliminated or consolidated, students being forced to, if they want to finish their degrees, having to do it online across multiple universities, about the downsizing of faculty members, the elimination of temporary faculty members. We'll see it all coming and what that'll mean for all of us here. Not to mention the fact there's legislation, which I've also talked about on this podcast, legislation that's being introduced with the support of the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's Office to open up Act 188, which founded the system, as a way to make sure that they can get to shut down universities. Right? Just put that in for the fair mix. All right, Sean, anything else in the PA focus today?
No, but you should definitely send the video I sent you over to watch during the break. It is hilarious.
Okay, we'll do.
Maybe we can talk about it on the other side.
All right, I'll take a peek. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be back right after this with this week's Last Call. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull-no-punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It's our last call. We talk space news, we talk beer news, we talk anything else that we feel like just doesn't fit anywhere else. So here we are. Sean, I just think we have to lead with the incredible Fox News interview of a Pennsylvania man who looked mysteriously like you. A Pennsylvania man who went through the...
Not my relative.
No, went through the coronavirus screening. And why don't you just take it from there and give us a little sense of that video?
It's about like it's a 40-second clip of this guy talking. He said he went through the coronavirus quarantine process and he was coughing throughout the interview. It was, it's kind of like, it's not funny, but it is because it's like
it's like skin crawling funny.
And he's like passing the water bottle back and forth between him and his daughter, like, and they're both drinking from it. It's like, dude. Did you see Mike Pence yesterday or a couple days ago? The video of him at the press conference when he got named, he fucking picking his nose, sneezing in his hand, and then fucking shaking people's hands.
I didn't see that part. No.
Yes. Like
let me just demonstrate for you what not to do. For example,
like him, like rubbing his nose with his hand, fucking sneezing in his palm, and then like shaking people's hands with that. And it's just like. People are like, your next coronavirus czar. People.
Well, I the thing is too is like what kills me, right? What I think is like, we all know that Trump is a complete germaphobe.
Yeah,
he must be going out of his mind. I mean,
probably why he's like in India right now. He's like, get me the fuck away from these places. Like, what? Is there any countries on the map that doesn't have it? All right. Are they a brutal dictator? Okay, we'll go there.
I'm just waiting for if we don't see this within the next couple of weeks, I'll be surprised. But I'm just waiting for the shot, right? The live shot of him being someplace and someone coming over and touches him and him like jumping away and be all freaked out. I'm just waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. He's probably got a bodyguard. Do you remember this during the campaign? There was this one campaign stop where he had the big Trump plane was in back of him, right? And he's up there. And some guy came up on the stage, and then you had this like bodyguard comes flying across the way and tackles him. I can imagine that Trump has got he's lined up his people, make sure nobody touches me. I don't care what you need to do. Just
he's gonna be like Bubble Boy, fucking rolling around in that.
Oh God, it's not funny. But this, you gotta.
It is funny because we're fucked and.
Yeah, I know.
Gotta make the most out of it.
No, that's fair enough. I guess that's kind of how I think about it.
That's how I felt about my last job.
There we go.
it sucks so bad. Let's just resort to gallows humor.
No, exactly. So I'm putting a link right now. I'm putting it in the show notes too as well, so that people can check that out. And you'll see what we're talking about. Just go, please do yourself a favor and kind of do that, just so that you can be kind of like join the cringe, right? And ask what the hell is going on here, and what is actually. Well, that's enough. I'll just leave it at that. Just go watch it. This is just a mention. 7 of 9 for all you Trekkies out there. 7 of 9 has returned to Star Trek's Picard, and she's not playing. I have to say, I didn't watch this week's episode. I watched last week's episode, and there's a lot of talk around it. 7 of 9 coming out, and if people who do not know what 7 of 9 is, 7 of 9 was a former Borg, and if you don't know what that is, then I'm just going to lose you anyway, so I don't care. But she's a former Borg, and so in her character arc, basically in the Next Generation, was kind of like this struggle to regain humanity because she had been a Borg for so long. And so it's an arc towards, this kind of like struggle to uplift kind of thing, right? Away from the robot toward the human, right? And then now when you see we continue to see in Star Trek's Picard the questioning of the Federation, showing the dark sides of Federation, as my friend Amy puts it, to see Picard's, the clay legs underneath Picard, right? The idea that he's been held up as this kind of heroic figure, and he becomes much more complicated. And then where 7 of 9 ends up in the series, at least right now, is a much darker place too as well. So it's this is feeding right into my sweet spot. So I'm liking it. So check it out.
So
yeah.
You remember the Vanessa Carlton song that was really big back in the 2000s? She had that 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
So she tweeted out, I'm from PA. I'd happily play 1,000 miles in every county for the state. So Dan Dubé from PA Stands Up quote tweeted and said, "This is sweet, and you're probably nice, but your song was exactly the soundtrack to America pretending like everything was fine after 9/11."
Oops.
So the response he got from people was, "LOL, damn, Dan." Another one of my friends, "Jesus Christ, Dan."
It's like, oh man, you're talking about punching
I'm
up.
I'm the only one in support.
Reach for the stars, man. Reach for the stars.
That is just Twitter is such a dumpster fire, and I'm glad I'm following the people I'm following with. So,
well, there you go. The one thing Sean and I had this talk. I don't want to go into it too far, but I think got a couple things to say. So, as we talk about, I've been tweeting out some things that are coming out from this show on Hill TV. It's called Rising, and it's with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. And I've been just kind of a little bit, not obsessed is the wrong word, but I've been paying a lot of attention to the show of late. And I think that I wish I could I read this article about that show, and I saw an interview, and I was trying to track it down. If I find it, I will post it up. That was kind of first pointed me in this direction about what's happening on that show. But so you said you've checked out some of it, Sean?
No, I've jumped feet first all the way in.
All the way in.
Yeah. I'm so a couple of things. I have not watched MSNBC at all, pretty much for the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching a lot more over the past couple of weeks just to watch the freak out.
Sure. In other words, this is Sean's way of saying he gets his MSNBCs through me.
I enjoy I am enjoying the Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
That's happening right now. I'm enjoying my one friend who's a Biden stan. He's like, man, you really embrace conflict.
Yeah, so anytime real life begins to resemble Twitter, Sean's in.
Because my one friend and his landlord were fighting each other on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if they realize like they're landlord tenants, because like this guy, the landlord's a total piece of shit Republican hack in Harrisburg. Really, no one likes. Not even the Republicans like him. But he's just he's embedded with everything. And then Dan Dubé were yelling at each other, and Dan rents offices from the company that this consultant doesn't really advertise to people that he's part owner in. So when I blew that lid off over the summer, kind of pissed him off, because it's like, hey, do you make sure? Because this guy was tweeting stuff about immigrants and how vile they were. And I said, hey, there's a bunch of immigrants outside of your building right now doing repairing it, doing contracting work, replacing drywall and everything. Did you make sure they were here legally? Check their status. Just like. And I did that over the summer, and that got a lot of DMs from people like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, not only did you just slap him across the face, but we didn't realize he was like involved with this huge development corporation, like redeveloping the whole entire city. And I'm like, yep.
Yep. Masks off, everybody. Masks off.
So Dan and this guy are yelling at each other. And I put the tweet up. I was like, man, it's really fun watching your neighbor fight with their landlord online in a pissing match. And my friend's like, you really embrace chaos and conflict. I'm like, yes. that is my role in life. I am the chaos creator.
There you go.
It's
stir the pot. Stir the pot.
It's a cathartic role. It's not a great role, but someone has to fill that void. And no, I think I am really good at stirring the pot.
Yep, I would agree.
I mean, no. So we're watching them fight, but yeah, I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about Rising, right? Talking about Rising.
Yeah, Rising. I don't even know how I got on that tangent.
Because MSNBC, he went through MSNBC.
Yeah. Yeah. All good things go through MSNBC now.
There you go.
But no, like it's been interesting watching Rising. I like Crystal Ball. I think her analysis is really good. It's also really interesting watching Sager and Jetty's rhetoric, simply because one part of my work is tracking the state policy network groups, which is where the World and Jetty comes from. So it's interesting seeing the rhetoric he's using, because, I mean, the one thing about these Koch-funded groups like Sager works at, they're good at polishing their rhetoric. So it's been interesting to see like where he's coming from. I mean, and I also feel like they're like, I don't know if their criticisms of the machine are in good faith, or they're making bad faith arguments in order to boost their show. Like, you know what I mean?
No, I get you, and I think that
like they're making good arguments, but in bad faith. Like,
right? I don't think that's the case. I think that I was just trying to see if because
I'm trying to like, who benefits from this chaos? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, look, here's my thought on this. Right, I don't think,
but I also think like Sager also legitimately believes that Bernie can actually win. I mean, and he is a Trumper or a conservative, but like he is in the notion like, no, you people shouldn't be wishing for Bernie, and be careful what you ask for. So it's like that type of stuff too.
Right. So here's my take on it, and this is why I mentioned it. I was just trying to find it. I want to say that they were on Rumble, right? Michael Moore's podcast, but I'm not finding it right away. But that might be the case. If I find it, I'll post it at some point. But by the way, while I just mentioned Rumble, have you listened to any of that?
Yes, I have.
Did you see Portugal the Man was just on?
I did not.
Yes, it's an episode 41, 5 days ago. Oh. It's an episode called "A Rebel Just for Kicks," featuring Portugal the Man.
Nice. Portugal the Man. I'll just go on this tangent.
Yep, go for it.
They are one of my favorite bands out there. I haven't really listened to them too much lately. They are the coolest people you will ever meet on the road. I had the opportunity to hang out with them in college when they were playing at the Croc Rock in Allentown. My roommate at the time, Zach, was doing some online demoing with the keyboardist. So like we sat, chilled, and talked with them for a good like half an hour, 45 minutes before the set, just sitting in the pizza shop area of the Croc Rock. And then when they were touring, in 2011 during the fall when Occupy was going. They stopped at one of the Occupy camps in Minnesota. I reached out to them on Twitter with the Occupy Philly account, and we're able to set up them coming to Occupy Philly and playing there.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember that whole process. That was you were like on cloud 9.
Yes. No, like being able to score them. I mean, like, but at the time, like, this is before they won their Grammy for Feel It Still. Like, and what I love about them, they're still down to earth. They make fun of selling out. Like, they have merch. Like, I was a fan of Portugal the Man before they sold out, which was great. Yeah. And when they played the Grammys, they had like big white, the black drop projected onto the behind them, and it said no synths, no computers, just music. Like, going after the fucking establishment there. Yep. Like what's considered music these days, and how it's more electronic stuff, and that pissed everyone off. But that's like who they are, and like they're awesome. So
that's awesome.
And they're really big into progressive left politics. Like they have a song from their couple out in the mountain in the clouds called "So American," and I mean that whole entire album is a protest album, pretty much. Yep. Like, yeah, like there's a lot of protest songs on there, and no, I mean it's who they are. And like they've been speaking that like Just King rhetoric, America's for all of us.
Yep.
For years now. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So Rising with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. So this is my take on it. So if you have never seen the show, it is on Hill TV, which already should raise weird questions for people like, what the hell, Hill TV? Like, the Hill is like
more conservative leaning.
Yeah, it's like, so what's going on
middle
here?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And Crystal Ball has, she was a Democrat. She was on embassy. She got kind of like fed up with that. She's done some fantastic work since then. I used to not like her that much because I thought, like, okay, here's the next TV personality. I remember when she came to the PA Progressive Summit kind of one year, and hearing her talk about her work in Kentucky and spending time in there, I was like, whoa, she's for real. Like, she kind of gets this. So I heard them talking a little bit what they're doing, and someone kind of like called them out in a positive way, say, I think I understand what's happening here. So this is kind of my take on the show, and why I've been paying a lot of attention to it is because instead of kind of it be like a CNN style, like, here's from the left and here's from the right, it's a different setup entirely, right? The idea is that both of them coming out as millennials, right, and basically saying that the enemy, so to speak, right, is not as much the left to the right, right? It's an establishment that has gone all in by paying attention to the Wall Street and the super rich, right? And that breaks down differently depending on which political party you're in, right? And so Sagar and Jetty comes at it from, he's a conservative, right? But from a lot of stuff on the show, he doesn't sound like it, right? He's a conservative because they both, when they talk about, they say, look, where the starting point needs to be with the working class instead of the rich. And what Sagar and Jetty says is that the Republican Party and the Republican establishment has sold out the working class. And what Crystal Ball says is the Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment has sold out the working class, right, as you've heard us talk about here. And so their point of attack and their point of reference is on this kind of much more populist upsurge in our culture right now. And it's very interesting to hear that discussion because it's not filtered through what we're used to see. Now, I will say, right, so as much as I'll tweet some of the stuff out, especially the stuff that's coming from Crystal Ball, right, is that the danger, what is the possibility and the danger of a show like this, right? The possibility is that we are now turning and putting a focus on populist politics that has a class base to it, a working class base to it, right, in ways that we haven't seen before. And part of that has been enabled, right, we should be clear, because of the Bernie Sanders campaign and from the Trump campaign in a very different way. Right, so that's the possibility. The danger of it is, as Sean has mentioned, right, you've got money coming in to help support the show that is coming from dark money groups, right? The people that...
And this is also like, this is the rhetoric these organizations are taking up. And
correct.
Like, so I had to really also piggyback off the conversation I had with this Democratic official earlier in the year, week. We were talking about the electability of Mike Bloomberg, right? And I said, I was like, listen, do you really think that Mike Bloomberg is electable? I mean, And I was like, they're going into, like there's going to be ads. If Mike Bloomberg's a candidate, there will be ads of Trump running to the left of Bloomberg on stop and frisk, on criminal justice issues.
You've heard me say this, right? Well, I've made this case, right?
But here we go. They were talking, and I was like, no. What you don't get is I'm seeing this every day at work, like in the Capitol. Like, we're following the Commonwealth Foundation, these right-wing groups, Americans for Prosperity, the Commonwealth Foundation, and all these other groups are buying themselves into the criminal justice reform movements.
Yep.
And they are pushing stuff like bail reforms or pardon reforms. Now, they're not going whole hog on them, but they're doing enough of it to generate the press releases, the stories, and the hits that make them a legitimate organization.
Yep.
And I told them this, and like they spent years doing this. I'm like, do you honestly believe that messaging, like that, and compared with like, I've heard more Americans for Prosperity, this is what they did. Like, they're not going to know this was a Koch brother group. Like there, yeah. I mean, there's already plays within the state policy network organizations to start going left on issues like populism,
right,
and issues of criminal justice reform,
right.
So like, no, it's just been interesting to watch, like, and trying to watch like, okay, what's their ulterior motive here from like the standpoint of I'm doing with work.
But and I would even say it like this. I would even put it like this. Instead of even thinking about it in terms of ulterior motive. Right?
Like, no, but not that ulterior motive, but the motive is clear. We go to the left of the Democrats on this because, like, they're becoming the Wall Street Party. They're becoming, like, they're going after the people we've been going, like, let's reinforce the notion that we are the working class party. The Republicans are the working class party and not the Democrats.
Right.
And this is where this populist rhetoric is
or in
leading
particular, at the very baseline, I think it's like this, right? I think Reid is both from the crystal ball side and the Sagar and Jetty side, right? The Reid is this. There are a ton of people that feel disaffected and left out of the political process right now, right? They feel that their country, their way of life, all their hopes and dreams have been ripped away, right? And a lot of the people that is to blame of that are the rich. Right? Are these kind of like whether you see the attacks on the kind of professional managerial class of the pinhead academics on the one hand, all these people, the experts up there, right? Chris Hayes talked about this right in Twilight of the Elites years ago.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. And what they're both seeing is that there needs to be somebody to speak to these concerns. Now, what they see as the cause of those concerns are not the same thing. Right?
No.
And as much as Sagar and Jetty will say that, he thinks that Trump is speaking to, right, a part of this kind of stuff, and he would reject kind of the overt racism and anti-immigration stuff. Frankly, I think that's the game that the right is going to play. Whether or not he personally will play that game, I think that's what the right's going to play. And the point there being is that instead of going through the Democratic Party, right, and try to simply just like find these little micro changes that need to happen in the party in order to make it more appealing. We need on the left, right? We need on the progressive populist left, need to leapfrog that. And that's the kind of thing that Sanders is doing. And that is why Crystal Ball is always putting an emphasis upon what's happening in the Sanders campaign and other kind of like populist moves, because she's paying attention to where things are disaffected. And we do a disservice to ourselves, right? On the left, right, if we are not going to engage in exactly those kind of politics, right, instead of trying to pretend that we need to go through the experts first.
And also another really good thing that this, like, conversation had, again, we're talking about organizing in different ways. And, like, look at the Latino community right now. That's been always been an underserved – and now they got pissed at me for saying this. But, like, the Latino community has always been an underserved demographic within the Democratic Party, and that they – their votes have been taken for granted. And that got them very angry. And I said,
who's them?
The person I was talking to.
Oh, the person. Okay, the person.
With this conversation.
Gotcha. I thought you were talking about like Latinos in the Democratic Party or something like that.
No. We're talking about going back to the conversation I had with the person at the bar that I know.
Yep.
But it's like, no, I mean, like, Sanders is outflanking them on so many things, and they don't even see it happening.
Right.
And that's what I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, this is what's happening. Like, you're getting, yeah.
Right. No, exactly. No, awesome. So anyways, the end of it is like, take a look at that, right? I mean, it's, and the other thing that the fact that it's all couched in this kind of like sunny morning show, like morning talk show, like it airs every morning, right? It's live online, and go to Hill TV.
By 10 o'clock, I'm looking for these videos every morning.
It's funny, right? It's funny how that works, right?
Oh no, I don't watch MSNBC. I don't get my news from traditional news sources.
Right.
My news comes from the Majority Report.
Right.
Which I think is a very good news source. Yep. Like, they're reporting on accurate things. That obviously Sam has their bent on things, but extremely informative. And, fuck the Young Turks, especially after this week.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Well, maybe let's come back to that after Super Tuesday and see where that goes.
Yeah. Fuck the Young Turks at this point. And this, it's been really enjoyable watching them, and I've been going back and watching stuff from 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Yep.
Too. So
do check that out. Yeah, I agree. I had the same experience. And the other one I want to plug to as well is Nomiki Konst. She has got her own show now called the Nomiki Show. It's part of the kind of like the Majority Report's kind of like, I don't know, expanding kind of quasi universe. But if you want to look at kind of like the internal, if you do want to go down the rabbit hole and get into the weeds of the Democratic Party machinery, she's a great kind of source for that. So do check that out too as well. The last thing I want to say for today is that this Sunday is Free Will Spirit of Mardi Gras. It's a barrel-aged celebration, which is kind of pretty cool. That will be taking place from Sunday at 11:30 to 8 p.m. At Free Will Brewing Company right there in Percy. And one of the big things that's kind of coming out. Oh, I should say also they have Trey Locally Sourced will be providing food, and they will be giving their interpretation of classic New Orleans dishes for all to enjoy, which would be pretty cool. And Donut Nevada NV or Donut NV will also be out there for some early Fat Tuesday celebrations, or for some, so that'll be kind of cool. Some chocolates, that's all good. And releases in this week. The really cool thing is this Sunday during the Spirit of Mardi Gras, they have bottles of the 2015 vintage Ralpheus will be available. And so you've got the guy, one of their brewers and stuff, they have John's Secret Stash. They kind of hold some bottles back and let them age a little bit more. So I'll give you the read on this. It says, a month or so ago, we dove into John's Secret Stash to start building our tap list for Sunday's event. We dusted off a couple of our 15 kegs, which we felt were extra special. Later, blending them together and packaging them in bottles. We feel these perfectly exemplify the evolution of Ralpheus in both age and process. You can get them at the brewery. It was brewed in December 2014 and aged until present. It was bottled in February, and they will be there for purchase. There are only 200 of those bottles available, so if you want them, you get them there. And the last thing we have tomorrow on Saturday, the traditional release day at Free Will Brewing, will be Kangaroo Dreams. That is a dry hop saison aged in wine barrels, and I'll give you the read on that. Dreamt up with our mob, Birds Fly South Ale Project from Greenville, South Carolina. South Carolina! Primary day. This collaboration was open fermented with our house saison yeast and mixed culture from both breweries, aged in oak puncheons for 5 months, and then dry hopped with Waimea before packaging. This little Joey is packed with tropical notes of lime and kiwi berry, peach tea, and the forest floor comes in at 5.4 ABV, perfect for some spring gardening work that I hope is right around the corner. So, cool. That's all I got. Anything else you got going on, Sean?
Not a whole lot. Had a networking breakfast this morning.
Oh, look at you!
I know.
Did you wear your suit?
Yes, I did.
You can tell by the way I use my walk.
So it's actually funny. I was going to get an Uber to drive. I didn't feel like walking the 3/4 of a mile to the Hilton this morning.
Oh, you don't want to dirty your suit. I mean, I know, I get it. I totally understand.
Well, no, more or less because
especially with the threat of potential flurries.
So, the Uber was taking too long, and I was like, well, fuck it. I'll just walk, and it'll take me 15 minutes to get there anyway. Mm-hmm. So I walked. But I had to move my car first because it was street cleaning. And as soon as I got out, I saw my neighbor who works, used to work in the Senate, now works in the Department of State. And as soon as I closed the door and turned around and was walking up the street, he was crossing the street with his dog. And he's like, "Look at you in this suit." It's like, I like him. Just like, he's like, "Man, I never thought I'd see this like out of nowhere on a Friday morning."
Exactly.
I was like, I got a breakfast I'm going to. It's like, I'm probably overdressed, but oh well.
Yeah, no, I thought it was funny that I didn't realize that you were doing this until you told me that, that anytime you need to go like out to like the store or something like this, then you now wear the suit because you're trying to up your image.
That's exactly what.
I like the selfies from when you're going to get coffee, just like in the suit with the no, just kidding.
No, I ended up going out with someone a couple weeks ago. They invited me to this breakfast earlier. I mean, it was good. We had a good conversation and all, but it was also interesting listening to the person speak, praising fracking and stuff like that. The guy,
oh, God.
this is exactly like what it is. But so it was through HYP, Harrisburg Young Professionals. So it's that type
My
of
stomach
crowd.
is turning now as I speak. I can't. These are the kind of things that I hate the most. I have to say.
Yes. So.
Glad you had a good time.
So what was funny was I was talking to one of my friends last night about joining HYP as a member, not because of like these like networking functions, these eggs and issues breakfasts, but like I want to get back playing rec sports. So like I want to try either play like soccer or rugby, and there is like an amateur rugby league around. Mm-hmm. I would just be interested to see like what experience it is, because I never played rugby before, but
just be careful with your back. That's all.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I mean that. Yeah. Just.
Oh, I know, but like, that's why I'm like thinking about just playing soccer.
Yeah.
Like low impact, something I can just run around with. Like the thing is with my back, it's been fucked up the last couple times I've gone out to go run.
Yeah.
But I think that's just like from running on the concrete, where it's just jogging around on the soccer field for a little bit. Like, one, I want to get back and playing some sports. Two, drop some weight from cooking in all the time. So now it's just like, instead of getting to the gym, maybe play some soccer and stuff like that.
Right.
Kick a ball around for a little bit.
I'm going to kick a ball around a little bit with my pals from the Young Professionals.
Yeah.
At least I'll be guaranteed it won't be too rough.
Well, the funny thing is, it's like, so Eric Strobel and Steve Catanese are both members of HYP, which is also funny. So.
Well, that'd be fun at least. At least then there's some people that would be
like, assholes right in. Like,
well, fun to be around at least right from the get go.
Yeah. So no, I mean, but that's pretty much like what that was my day, and it's pretty much it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Well, it's from what I understand, it's supposed to get nicer next week, which I'm really hopeful about. I already have got
in the 50s.
Yeah, and I've got my. There's already some stuff that's poking through the ground in my garden, which I'm very excited about. Which means that I got to go.
You're excited about your shit coming up in February?
Well, some of it did actually. Some start. Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it is February still. Yeah, I mean, it's like I was taken back. But it shows you how much how much the ground did not freeze. Right, and
I walked the riverfront this week, and like fucking stoneflies.
Yep.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere, and I was just cringing at the thought, like, it didn't get cold enough for a long period of time this winter. So not only are ticks going to be bad, lanternflies are going to be spotted lanternflies are going to be horrendous.
Yep.
Mosquitoes are going to be horrendous. I know. I mean, thank you, climate change.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
the 50-degree. Like the winter, the muggy winter that we had, and then, it's just not going to be a fun spring and summer with all these bugs that did not get killed off. The birds will be happy, though.
Yep. They'll eat.
Yeah, so.
Well, crazy. Well, that's good. So gardening coming forward and so on. Got to get some compost out. That'll be good. Yeah. Well, anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
No, nothing really. I'm going to get a bird feeder this weekend.
Cool.
I hang it on my porch and use it as a spot to take pictures of some of the birds that are going to be coming through. So
cool.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, what the hell? Embrace climate change. Come on, birds. Come on, you tropical little kitties, you. Come on up. All right. Well, hey, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Thanks for sticking with us this week. We'll get it. It's probably going to get posted by the time it gets out. It'll be posted a little bit later than it's normal. So I apologize for you who are listening now, because I've just got a couple errands I need to run pretty soon. So anyways, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Thanks for sticking with us, and we will see you next week, and we will know what happens on Super Tuesday. Whoop, whoop. See ya.
Then you're saying it will for sure be affordable for anyone who needs it.
I'm saying we would want to ensure that we work to make it affordable, but we can't control that price because we need the private sector to invest. The priority is to get vaccines and therapeutics. Price controls won't get us there.
Mr. Secretary.